So, in this era where we see a lot of reboots occur, one reboot that I think could happen, and you see the title of that show that I feel could definitely benefit from a reboot, especially in the animation department, is The Secret World of Alex Mack. Now, this was a show that came on in the mid-90s for about 4 seasons, and it centered around a young girl named Alex Mack, a teenage girl named Alex Mack, who gets doused with a chemical compound from a truck that's, from a company that her parents work for. And what it does, this chemical compound, is it grants her powers. Powers that she learns over the 4 seasons of the show to control and, at times have fun with. She helps people out like her sister and stuff, but she also has fun with it. Now, what are these powers, you might ask? Well, one of the powers, she's able to shoot lightning and electricity out of her fingers. The others, later on, is she gains super strength. And I think she also learns how to, use telekinesis or something to make things float. I'm not really sure. But the most popular power out of all of those is the morphing power. And we're not talking a morphing power of turn into somebody else, turn into an inanimate object, turn into a vehicle, turn into a tree, a plant. No. We're talking the morphing power of turning into, a liquid puddle of goo or water. That's basically what it was. And you might you might ask yourself, well, why do they call it morphing? I think the reason they called it morphine is because they didn't want to particularly use the word melt. I don't think they wanted to use the word melting to describe this power, because it might have turned some fans off, or maybe turned some viewers off as being too disgusting. So they decide, okay, we'll go with morphine. We'll go with her morphing into liquid and go from there. And the way they were able to capitalize on this too is have her be able to use this ability to blend in with other, aquatic, areas. Like, for example, in the first season or so, there's 2 incidences where she merges with water. One, she's at a pool party and she decides to, when nobody's looking, to morph into the water, merge with it, and basically use it to basically get back at a kid who was playing a prank in the pool. The other time is when she merges with the water in this little fountain thing and controls it to go up and then connect together in the front. It's like some kind of a statue or exhibit or whatever. And however, she stayed in that pose, or stayed in that kind of I guess you could say state for the time, is unknown, because in the next scene when they transition over, she's back to normal. Now, with that said, though, there is another example of her doing that. And as later on, a few seasons later, she's in the house of one of the neighbors she's, babysitting the bratty kid for, and she has to morph and basically blend in with the water in an aquarium. And then basically use that to try to escape later on. Now, she does have fun with this, and I think this is why it was probably the most popular power she had, because she has fun with it. She uses it to sneak out, and everything, to go to where she's got to go without her, parents, being, aware of it or anything like that. As well, she has fun with it when it comes to her friends and her sister. For example, one of the powers she learns later on in the show is the ability to morph into water while carrying inanimate objects and eventually carrying people, like she does it with her friend Ray, and then she does it with her sister Anna. They basically merge together into one puddle and basically, flow around to wherever they gotta go. Now again, this is, in my opinion, this is why I think it's the most particular, I think this is why basically it is, in particularly, the most popular, that's what I'm trying to say, in particular, the most popular power. Because seeing her do that, a lot of kids watching the show, even teens, could imagine themselves having that power and being able to do whatever they want to do without detection, if you know what I mean. Now, why do I think Alex Mack could benefit from an animated reboot? Well, to give credit where credit is due, they did what they could in the limited space and budget that they had. They did what they could. But you could definitely tell throughout that they wanted to do a lot more. They wanted to explore other avenues, but they couldn't. They couldn't explore these other avenues due to the fact that they were limited not only by the sound stage and environments they were working in, but again, like I said, by the budget that they were utilizing for special effects and stuff like that. But you can definitely tell that the creators wanted to do more. And I guarantee you the cast probably wanted to do more as well. So to me, that's where an animated reboot could come in. To me, that's when an animated reboot could come in, because in animation, whether it's traditional 2D, 2D Toon Boom, 2D Flash, whether it's a hybrid of 2D CG, straight up CG, or so on, CG Flash, whatever the case may be, with animation, you could do a lot more. You're not limited to, you're not limited to a certain space and place and all that. You're not limited to a soundstage or anything. You could go anywhere and do anything with animation. You can let your imagination, as they say, run wild. You can do that. You can let your imagination run wild, and that's a fact. That is a fact. You can let your imagination run wild. Now, with that said, why do I think it could benefit from animation? Well, again, like I said, the possibilities. I mean, think about it this way. You could do a story with Alex Mack where she morphs into liquid, but as she morphs, she comes into contact with like a slimy, gooey substance, and basically she ends up fusing with it, and it creates basically a new persona for her. Like it's her, but more, I guess you could say edgy or whatever. Or it helps her powers grow to the point that she could just morph her arm and it turns into whatever gooey, liquidy substance, or whatever the case may be. You could do that. Or, again, you could have her merge with it, and basically it allows her, just like she did in one of the premiere episodes, which was a two-parter, split in two. But in this case, she's basically the same person, but one is made of, goo. Like she still has her morphing powers, but now she's created a goo version of herself. You could do that. Or you could have her travel into space by accident and maybe test what could happen there with her powers. Again, with animation, it's endless. It really is. Another thing they could do, and they teased this a little bit, and I think it was in the Christmas episode, you could have somebody else show up with that power as well, or at least a similar power, and maybe you could have them have an understanding with Alex, and perhaps in a situation where they both need to help each other as well as help those that are their friends, you can end up having them both morph, and they fuse, and thus they come together and fuse into one. That's one way of doing it. It's one way to look at it as well. And again, with animation, a lot of this is possible. It really is. With animation, a lot of this is possible. Another thing that makes things possible, by doing a rebooted Alex Mack show, is the fact that you could grow her powers even more so outside of what we saw in the 4 seasons of the live action series. For example, people will question why, why call her power of turning into liquid into water, why call it morphing when she's just melting? Well, here's the opportunity in an animated reboot. Here's the opportunity to really build upon that. And instead of having her just morph into water, you can allow her powers to evolve to the point that she doesn't just have to morph into water. She can morph into anything else or anybody else. And that would work. People would, get a kick out of it, if you will. People would get a kick out of it, if you will. Because, again, it would be developing her powers more so than what we saw in the show. Because, again, you can have her powers evolve to where she gets super strength. She's able to morph into liquid with other people and inanimate objects and stuff. And that's fine. But here you could really play with that morphing name, that morphing power, by having her not only go into liquid, but start learning how to shape herself into other people or other things, to evade any circumstance she might be in. Again, possibilities are endless with animation. They really are. They really are. In fact, you can even tease because here's the thing. I don't think they slightly teased it at all, but you could tease that when she's in a liquid state, she could evaporate. But it wouldn't kill her or anything. It'd just be an evolution of her powers, and she could just rain down with a bunch of rain and then reform. That's a good way. That's a good direction to go in. And honestly, it's something that could really be done beneficially in animation. Not saying they couldn't have explored it in the live action, but in the animation department, whew, possibilities there. Like I said, I know I'm being repetitive when I mention this, but they are endless. They are endless. No doubt. No doubt they are endless to any possibility. Because again, if you're going to evolve her powers to where she can morph and everything, why not have her morph to the point that she could self-evaporate and rain down, or whatever the case may be, or seep into the ground and help, let's say, educationally help, grow a tree. Maybe she becomes the water for the tree, and then she blends with the tree, and she becomes one with it, and then she's able to, come back out, or something like that. Kind of restore herself, demorph, demerge. So again, a lot of possibilities, a lot. And again, from an adventure standpoint, a story standpoint, there's so much more you could do. You don't have to be limited to just where she's living at, just to her hometown or anything like that. You can go outside of that. Like I mentioned earlier, you could do space. You can have them go into a jungle. You can have them going on a winter vacation and everything. And heck, maybe she learns how to morph into a snow woman or something like that, or a snowman to evade detection to see what's going on. You get what I'm saying, right? You get what I'm saying. These are things that, if they had a bigger budget back then and technology was where it's at today then, if technology was, CGI wise and all that was where it's at right now, back then in the 90s, if it was in that position and they had a bigger budget, yeah, there's no doubt they'd probably be able to do a lot of this. But because it wasn't and they were limited, that's where, again, an animation comes into play. Yeah, some people will say animation can be expensive. That's true. But why do you think some people like to go the animation route with some of their ideas? Like doing animated adaptations, of movies. Like, why do you think they did Back to the Future, the animated series? I'm just saying. Because of the fact that they could do more with it. They could go into other time zones that even though they could have had the budget to do that for future movies, there was no way they'd be able to do it. There'd be no way they'd be able to do it, I should say, because it would be over their budget. And I think, of course, they were just limited to 3 movies. That's it. But they could have done it if they had a bigger budget. They could have said, okay, we'll do one more movie and we'll put it in the Jurassic period or, the medieval times. They could have done it, but they didn't. And that's why the animation series comes in. Or that's why the animated series came into play, because they could do a lot more in the animated series than they could in the movies. A lot more. And even the IDW comics that they got centered around Back to the Future right now, you could do a lot more in there as well. A lot more. You could do a lot more. Period. The point I'm getting at in conclusion is, if there's any show I can think of that definitely deserves a reboot, but in the animation, direction, if you will, to me, it has to be The Secret World of Alex Mack. It has to be. And what's crazy is you can have Alex Mack as a character, having fun with her powers. You can have a lot more fun with these powers. A lot more fun. Morphine and doing all that. She can have a lot more fun. Heck, you can even have her powers grow to the point that she finds out, oh, I got the power to go invisible, and there you go. That's something to explore in animation too. And again, like I said earlier, what animation allows the people behind the show, if the original people behind the show come back to do a reboot in an animation form or animation style, what it allows the original team to do is work on ideas that they wanted to do in the live action series, but they couldn't because of the limitations that they had, not just set-wise and effects-wise, but also budget-wise. Animation would allow them to explore those ideas. So to me, I think an animated reboot of The Secret World of Alex Mack would work perfectly, because they'd be able to do a lot more than they were able to do in the live-action series. But let me know what your thoughts are. Do you think The Secret World of Alex Mack, if you were a fan of it, and I'm sure some of you were, if not many of you, do you think a reboot in animation form would work wonders for it and be able to allow stories to be told that couldn't be told in the original because of limitations? Let me know down below in the comments, as well as in the live chat during the premiere. Like the video, and until then, talk to y'all later.